Welcome to all of you who've joined us to the launch of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Steve Anthony and Peter Bentley, and it is great to see so many of you here today. Just introduce ourselves. I'm Annie Everall from Authors Aloud UK, and Naomi Cooper is here and will give you a little wave as well from Authors Aloud UK. Becky Mansell, the publicist from Hachette Children's Group, is here with us. So Becky, can you give a little wave as well? And we have Elaine Connolly, who is the Senior Commissioning Editor for picture books for Hachette Children's Group. So Elaine, can you give a little wave? Also, welcome to colleagues from the Ian Fleming estate who are also with us tonight, and it's a real pleasure to have you here. In terms of the shape of the event, I will hand over to in a minute to Elaine Connolly to introduce Steve and Peter, and then Peter and I will, and Steve and I will be chatting about. Then can I, at this point, hand over to Elaine Connolly, who is going to introduce Steve and Peter properly. And as I said, Elaine is the Senior Commissioning Editor for picture books for the Hachette Children's Group, but she has had a huge range of experience working in her previous job on fiction and non-fiction, and she is really passionate about picture books, so I think she probably loves this one. So over to you for a moment, Elaine.
Hello, thank you so much, Annie. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to be here to help get the evening started. Annie briefly mentioned that I have a passion for picture books, and that is absolutely true. But I'm also quite new to the Hachette Children's Book team, only 2 months. So when I was asked to join the Chitty team, I was very excited, mostly because I just got to ride on the coattails of everyone else's hard work and success. So thank you for that. I want to say that we are so grateful to the Ian Fleming estate for the opportunity to bring this much-loved story and timeless classic to life, to a brand new audience for the youngest of readers. Thank you to the wonderful wordsmith, Peter Bentley, for retelling the story with such magic and wonder. And thanks also to the amazing artist, Steve Anthony, for bringing Chitty so vibrantly to life. It is a wonderful picture book. I have a copy here. I don't have fancy shelves behind me, but you can picture it. We here at Hachette are so proud to publish the book, and it really is the perfect Christmas gift and an absolute must-have for every child's bookshelf. You are all in for an evening of treats, and I will stop rambling, and I would really like to give the warmest of welcomes to Peter and Steve and get this evening properly started. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here and finally to be launching Chitty. It's a very weird year to be launching any book in, really. The fact that we're all here sort of on a screen rather than in a room quaffing Hachette's finest champagne is quite something, but at least we're doing it, and we've all learned to improvise this year, and we've all learned to work with what we've got, I suppose. And that's a bit like adapting a big story for a picture book. I thought what I would do is actually read the story. If everyone would feel like a story, I will read it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it in 2 halves. So I'll read the first half, and then I'll read the second half a bit later on. So it's not all at once. And while I'm reading, Steve will show the pictures, and you won't see my face, which is so you've got a much better option of seeing Steve's pictures rather than me. There we go. That's amazing, and actually, I can finally see the drawing that Steve's been doing. Is
that okay? Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay. So if you're all sitting comfortably, I'll begin with my adaptation of Ian Fleming's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Jemima and Jeremy Pott lived by a lake with their mum and dad. They were a happy family, even though they were very poor. But Dad was a clever inventor, and one day he made some musical sweets that whistled when you sucked them. They were called toot sweets. Everybody loved the sweets, and Dad sold them for lots of money. Suddenly, the Potts were rich. "Righto, let's go," he said. "Where?" chorused the others. "To the garage," said Dad. "We're going to buy a car." The Potts didn't like any of the cars at the garage. But just as they were about to leave, Dad spotted something under a cover. It was a big old racing car, all rusty and broken. "It's off to the scrapyard tomorrow," said the garage man. "What a shame. It looks so sad," said Mum. "Dad can fix it," said Jeremy. So home it went. Dad shut himself up in his workshop to fix the old wreck. For weeks and weeks, all the family heard was banging and hammering and scraping. The smell of oil and fresh paint drifted over the garden. At last, Dad said, "Righto, everybody, come out and meet our new car." The car looked amazing. Its paint shone, its headlights glistened and glinted. "She's the most beautiful car in the world," said Jemima. Dad started the engine. It made 2 loud sneezes, and 2 small explosions. "She just told us her name," said Jeremy. "It's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang." "Let's go for a drive to the beach," said Mum. "It's such a lovely day." Chitty Chitty Bang Bang zoomed past all the other cars until she got stuck in a long traffic jam. A knob flashed on the dashboard. It said, "Pull me." Dad pulled the knob. A propeller popped out of the front of the car, and the mudguards fanned out like the wings of a bird. Then, whoosh! Chitty Chitty Bang Bang soared into the sky. "Wow," said the children, "she can fly." "I knew this car was special," said Dad. "She's terrific," said Mum. "She's smashing," said Jeremy. "She's magical," said Jemima. When they got to the beach, there was nowhere to land. So Chitty Chitty Bang Bang headed straight out to sea. "Where are we going?" asked Mum. "No idea," said Dad. "Chitty is steering all by herself." "She's heading for that island," said Jeremy. "Clever Chitty," said Jemima. "She's found an empty beach." Chitty Chitty Bang Bang landed smoothly, tucking away her wings and propeller. "Well done, Chitty," said Mum. Chitty's radiator hissed softly. "Sss. She's saying you're welcome," said Jemima. The family had a lovely time on the beach. They splashed in the sea and ate a delicious picnic. Afterwards, they lay on the golden sand and dozed off in the sunshine. They didn't see the sunshine turn to mist. And that wasn't all. Gagooga! Chitty's klaxon horn woke Jeremy first. He cried out an alarm. "Quick, everybody, the tide's coming in." Mum started Chitty's engine. "There's no room to take off," she said. A button flashed on the dashboard. It said, "Press me." Mum pressed the button, and Chitty's wheels swung out sideways. "We're sinking," said Jemima. And that's the end of part 1.
Brilliant. You just left it on the cliffhanger there. So we'll, if the audience is very nice to us tonight, you can share the other half of it later.
Yes, if they're all very good. And
they're very good. Very good. So let's sort of have a chat about you guys and about the book.
Yeah.
So maybe can I just start by asking both of you to just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into writing, how you got into illustrating, Steve and Peter.
Well, I suppose I was originally an editor. Well, I started off writing as a journalist. I worked on very interesting magazines about cash points. This was years, many decades ago. And then I left that and got into illustrated non-fiction. And I worked there as an editor for about 15, 16 years. And then I acquired a family. And of course, I then became aware of picture books much more. And I thought I'd have a go at writing myself. This was about, I suppose 15, 16 years ago now. And my first book was published 2008. First children's picture book.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, kind of. Getting the first book published is the hardest thing.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? How did you get into illustrating?
Well, it's something that I've always enjoyed, illustrating ever since I was, very young. It sounds cliche, but, it's true. And I graduated from, I'll give you the short version of the story. Okay, so I love to draw, had many, many jobs, got made redundant. With that money, went to university, studied a master's in children's book illustration at Anglia Ruskin in Cambridge, and graduated with 3 books to show publishers. So The Queen's Hat, Green Lizards versus Red Rectangles, and what was the other one? Oh yeah, Please Mr. Panda. And that was it. And then the rest, as they say, again, it's just, for me, is history. I kind of carried on doing that, and here we are.
And here we are with this amazing book, among many amazing books. So can I then ask you, how did the collaboration for this book come about? How did you get together? Or were you brought together? How did it work?
Well, it was Ashet who brought us together. I think they spoke to the estate and got permission to make a picture book version of the story. And they asked me and they asked Steve if we would illustrate, if we would do it. And so it's more or less the same time, I think, wasn't it, Steve? I think I remember.
It was. I seem to recall that our illustrations in your text they kind of developed simultaneously. I recall working on the car, the initial designs of the car, while you were about to start work on the text. So we were sort of kind of working separately, weren't we, for a while? And then we met up. Then we met up, of course, with the publisher and the Ian Fleming estate, and to talk about where to take the book. And so it was a really, really it was an exciting collaboration, that's for sure.
Well, it certainly was. I mean, it was unlike a normal picture book process in that if you ever write an illustrator, normally the text is written first and then the illustrator does their magic. But we were sort of doing it in parallel, and there was there was consultation and we haven't got room for this, or we'd like to do that or that. And it was quite an unusual and a very pleasurable way of working, actually.
Yeah, it was. And I can remember there were a few times when the text had to be tweaked because of some of the things that I illustrated, and I think the same. I think vice versa also. So that sort of bouncing back and forth, whilst the book developed. So yeah, well, it was. So because I know that sometimes illustrators and authors don't really see each other until the book's been published. So this was so this was quite unique, a really special project.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's. I found it really interesting. Actually, you're probably going to ask this anyway. I found it interesting, the choices that I had to make to condense a novel, a children's novel, essentially down to what's about 800-900 words. And it was very interesting, and always trying to think visually as to, yes, what would what would this be interesting for Steve to illustrate, or occasionally, as Steve said, I already had the illustration, and if I had the illustration, I'd know how much space I had to put text in, and how much I had to write for a particular section. So yeah, it was an interesting process.
And was it scary, trying to write a modern reworking of such a classic story? I mean, Ian Fleming is an iconic author. So how did you ensure that your book embodies the spirit of his original? And how did your collaboration with the Ian Fleming estate work? Because it was like three points of a triangle: you and Steve and the Ian Fleming estate and the publisher in the middle.
Yes, well, actually, I found the estate very easy to work with. It was clear from the start that there were some things which probably couldn't be in the book, in a picture book.
Yeah.
For example, there's an episode. I mean, the book. I should say that the novel diverges considerably from the film. So. There's no child catcher in it, but there are these violent criminals who sneak into the children's bedroom and kidnap them while they're asleep. And I just thought, and everyone agreed, the estate agreed as well, that actually that is probably not something you want to be reading to a 4-year-old or 5-year-old last thing at night. So that sequence with the robbers changed quite a bit. And it ended up in Paris, which the original doesn't end up in. Oh, it does end up in Paris, yes. But we changed that sequence quite a bit. And there were a couple of other places as well where I would say, well, look, do you mind if we do it this way? The estate work, they came back with a view, and usually we found it was a lot. Let's say it was a very smooth and easy negotiating process. It's not remotely like Brexit. A topical reference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a beautiful book, and I do think that your text and Steve's illustrations just work together in perfect harmony, and I really do think it makes the book much more accessible to a new generation of children. I think you've achieved a huge amount with it, and I think people and children particularly will just love it. That was the aim. Yeah, no, and that I think you achieved that aim. You sort of talked a little bit about the kind of writing process. From the writing process, can I ask you what you think were your biggest challenges, and what was the biggest fun element of writing the book?
Well, there's what's quite fun, and I quite enjoy the challenge. The challenge of actually condensing it, condensing so many words into so few words. The challenge, I suppose, was that it's very much the original is very much focused on Professor Caractacus, Commander Caractacus Pot. It's not Potts as in the film, Caractacus Pot, and he basically is a typical post-imperial father who is basically in charge of things, and everyone tags along. He's a great character, but I really wanted to make sure that, for example, Mum got to drive the car half as much as Dad got to drive the car, and that the children had things to say as well, and they had ideas to contribute to the forward motion of the plot, just to make it feel more like a modern family. But it's surprising, actually, quite a lot of the decisions were taken for me. Like I was thinking, should I put in his whole naval title and his first name, Commander Caractacus Pot? But actually, I thought if I do that, I'm going to use up about half my word count. So they become the Pot family. He becomes Dad, and she becomes Mum, and then it's the children. The children get named because, in a way, I want them to be the sort of the focal point in the family.
Yeah.
As far as they can be.
Okay, can I then ask you, Steve, about the illustrative techniques that you use during the book, and particularly there were some things that really I loved about the book, how you create that amazing sense of place and the kind of sense of perspective, the three-way split in the pages, the sense of movement. I mean, the thing that really struck me was in the sea when Chitty is the boat, because I actually felt like I was on water, you know. And how do you manage to get such amazing details into such tiny pictures, like, you know, the when on the bus, and you can clearly see those tiny people. How do you do that? How do you create that magic?
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I wanted to really immerse myself in the story, immerse myself in the world of Chitty, and I think to answer your question more specifically, I use pencils and graphite sticks. So all the drawings are all real. They're all on paper. And I'm just going to go to that illustration that you're referring to with the crowd. So this is the one I think you're referring to, isn't it? Yeah. So you've got all these people. I know it's a tad blurry on the screen, but there's so many people. And just this alone, this bit here alone, probably took about maybe a week to illustrate. Yeah. Because I think one thing that people maybe don't really consider is that an illustrator is so much more than someone that draws pictures. An illustrator is a fashion designer. An illustrator is an architect. An illustrator is a cinematographer. And I could go on, just coming up with the look of the family, you know, and the clothes that they're wearing and where they live, details that one may not even notice. They're a very eco-friendly sort of family. They've got a water butt, wind turbine, solar panel. And so I really kind of think about, you know, I think, as I said, I really immerse myself into their world, because you have to do that in order to really see it, to visualize it. And then putting your visuals onto paper, that's a challenge. You know, it can take a lot of time.
Yeah, and as I say, your use of split pages, you know, I thought in terms of the timeline of the story, it just worked beautifully. And when I was reading it, I thought this must have taken ages, you know, to draw. So hats off to you. It's just amazing. Okay, so what's my next question? I mean, we talked about this slightly earlier, that there are 4 Chitty Chitty Bang Bang books, and are you planning on doing further?
Well, I think there are 2 Chitty books, which are which they came out as 2 separate books.
Okay.
They were bound together in the one that everyone knows. Well, we did talk about this actually. That there is a lot of potential for further Chitty adventures. That is somewhat in the hands of the gods, really. The gods of Ashet and Ian Fleming. But I would certainly love to continue Chitty's adventures. You know, in different environments, showing other things that Chitty can do, you know, as magical car.
Yeah.
I'd definitely be up for it. I'm sure Steve would be too.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I don't know about you, Peter, but I really feel like I know, I mean, we all know and love Chitty, but having the honor of working on this new adaptation, I really feel like I really know Chitty. You know, I feel like, you know, I kind of know her inside out, and the family too, and where they live.
Yeah.
Kind of you become invested. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I'd like to make more of. I mean, Steve very cunningly designed Chitty as an electric car. I'd like to make that more explicit in a sequel or another book. There wasn't really space to go into that here, so that's certainly a way I'd like to take it. Just to make the most of this Chitty that Steve has created visually.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely, and I actually think that when it comes to picture books, you don't need to necessarily describe in the text everything that's going on in the picture, but you're absolutely right. It's an electric car, and that's not stated in the text. So it's quite possible that someone might read the book and not really realize, without, unless they really are paying attention and wondering where the exhaust pipes are, and what is that thing with the lightning bolt on the side.
Yes.
So yeah.
We did have a discussion about whether, if it was an electric car, Chitty could still be called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and could make the noises. But we decided that we'd allow that, just because you had to, really.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, it's, the front cover, the production of the book as a whole is excellent. The end pages, the cover design, and just the quality of it, I think all adds to the magic of the story, and the pictures that you've woven together. And I don't know if you picked this up, but Jill Bennett did a review of the book, and she says, Peter's telling sweeps you along in the mounting excitement, and Steve's terrific detailed illustrations provide readers with varying perspectives from which to witness the action. Together, they've created a wonderful way to introduce youngsters to the original story. And I think she sums that up perfectly.
Oh,
that's lovely.
I guess my question, it really is, what do you hope that children will take from reading the book?
Oh, well, I hope primarily they'll enjoy it as a story, as an adventure, and I think that's really, that is primarily what you want out of a story, and I hope they'll ask their carer or parent to read it again and again and again. But I also would hope that they fall in love with the character of Chitty, this magical car, and perhaps are left yearning for more Chitty adventures, possibly, and maybe see themselves in the family. They are a fairly normal family, slightly quirky, slightly hippie-ish family, but that's I hope a lot of children will see themselves in that family.
How about you, Steve?
Well, there's something about the story. I can't quite articulate why it's so magical, but perhaps it's the simplicity of the story. I don't know, but it's obviously stood the test of time, and it's a world famous story. Yeah. So there's something very special there. And I hope that this book kind of continues, continues the life of Chitty. It breathes new life into Chitty and introduces her to a new generation. Because for me, I think for many people, for many adults, Chitty, we all know Chitty. We all know and love Chitty, whether it be the musical, the TV show, the movie, the books, and I like to think that this is, and just it's a magical book. I'm not making sense. I'm so sorry.
No, you are.
I can't quite articulate.
You're making perfect sense.
Making perfect sense to me.
Yeah, no, I think in the way that many children and lots of adults check all the wardrobes wherever they go in case they might find their way into Narnia. What we want is all those kids looking at their cars in the hope that they might discover Chitty. So that's that's the aim, really, isn't it? That they all believe in that magic and think that their car might just end up being a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So
yes. Because cars do have faces, don't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, and personalities.
Yeah.
I've actually named all my cars.
Yeah, me too.
How many cars? I don't know how many I've had now, maybe 6 or 7, and I've named all of them, and they've all got their own personalities.
They do, yeah, they do. So, so that's it. People will be looking for Chitty. So, I think at that point, I'll pause in my questioning, and because I know that we're going to have another reading from Peter, and you showing some more pictures, and then we've got a quiz that you're going to do for some lucky winners to win a copy of the book. So I will hand back over to you to weave your magic again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So Mum pressed the button and Chitty's wheels swung out sideways. "We're sinking," cried Jemima. But then the wheels began to spin, and in a moment, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was shooting through the waves. "Brilliant," declared Jeremy. "She's turned into a speedboat." It was hard to see where they were going in the mist. But at last the fog lifted, and they saw the coast ahead. "Look, it's France," shouted Dad. "What an adventure." Chitty's wheels clicked back to normal, and they bumped their way up onto the shore. "The tide's still coming in," said Mum. "We can't stay on the beach." "Look, a cave," cried Jeremy. "Perfect," said Mum. "We can shelter in there." Mum drove Chitty into the cave. It wasn't a cave at all. It was a tunnel. "I wonder where it goes," she said. At the end of the tunnel was a great wall of rock. "Righto," said Dad. "Looks like we'll have to turn back." But then Jemima spotted something behind a boulder. It was a big black lever. She gave it a tug, and the wall began to slide open. Chitty's headlights lit up huge heaps of golden jewels. "Pirate treasure," said Jemima. Mum picked up an old newspaper. "Not pirates," she said. "Robbers." The newspaper said, "Joe the robber strikes again. Many jewels stolen in Paris." "This must be Joe the robber's secret hideout," said Dad. "We should tell the police," said Mum. On the other side of the hideout, some people were unloading gold from a van. "It's Joe the robber," said Jeremy. Chitty blasted her horn. "Gagooga!" Joe yelled, "Quick, Scarpa!" The gang sped off in their van, out of the tunnel and onto the motorway. "After them, Chitty," cried Mum. "Look, they're heading for Paris," said Dad. They chased the gang through the city streets, but Chitty had to stop at a traffic light. "Bother," said Mum. "We'll never catch them now." The lights turned green, and without warning, Chitty swerved down a narrow alley. "There's the van," said Jemima. "Clever Chitty." The robbers ran into a park. They were heading straight for a hot air balloon. "They're escaping," said Dad. The knob on Chitty's dashboard began to flash. "Pull me, pull me." "Hold on tight," said Mum. She pulled the knob, and once again Chitty flew into the air. "But how can we stop the balloon?" said Jemima. Chitty had the answer. She swooped down, and with her sharp wings, snip snap, she cut the ropes of the balloon. The robbers tumbled out into the river with a big splash. Chitty landed smoothly in the park. As the police led the robbers away, a smart limousine drew up. "Look, who's this?" said Dad. "Surely it can't be." "It is," said Mum. "It's the President of France." The President shook their hands. "Thank you for catching the robbers," she said. "As a reward, I am giving you this special medal." "Thank you," said Jemima. "But it isn't us who deserves the medal. It's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang." Gagooga! The end. Yes, sorry about this. Sorry about the French accent.
We allow you to take the license on that one. So, so yes, over to you to do your quiz.
Hey. Righty ho. Well, we're going to alternate. So I'm going to ask one question and Steve's going to another. How many shall we do, Steve? We're having a.
Should we go for 5 or 6? 6?
Yeah. let's go for 6. Then we have 3 each. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So question 1: in what year? Oh, by the way, we should lay down some ground rules for the quiz. Can you please make a note of all your answers, and when the quiz is finished, only then put them up in the chat box. And rule 2, and I know I don't need to say this to all these lovely children's book people, but no Googling. Okay, question 1. In what year was Chitty first published? In what year was Chitty first published?
Question number 2. How many children's books did creator Ian Fleming write? How many children's books did creator Ian Fleming write?
Okay. Question 3. Chitty was named after a real racing car. What was its name? Was it Chitty Bang, Chitty Bang Bang, or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Question number 4. Who was the first illustrator of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? Who was the first illustrator of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Okay. I think there's a choice there, wasn't there, Steve?
Oh, there was a choice. Sorry.
we like our quizzes really hard.
The choices are. See, I knew this. I knew this like years ago. So for me, this is like anyway. Sorry. Who was the first illustrator of Chitty? Was it John Birmingham, Quentin Blake, or Helen Oxenbury? John Birmingham, Quentin Blake, or Helen Oxenbury?
Right. Question number 5. Ian Fleming was inspired to write a children's book by a book that he'd been sent in hospital, and which he thought was Terrible Bilge. Was it A, The Cat in the Hat, B, Squirrel Nutkin, C, The 101 Dalmatians? So The Cat in the Hat, Squirrel Nutkin, or The 101 Dalmatians?
Question number 6. Which multi-Oscar winning director bought one of the Chitty cars and drove the cast members all around the set? So which multi-Oscar winning director bought one of the Chitty cars and drove cast members around the set?
And we've got no choice for that, have we? you either know it or you don't. But it's
yes.
I suppose the clue might be that it's fairly recent. We could say maybe. Yeah.
It's fairly recent, and I think it was. It's one of those things that you would hear as sort of on the radio, on the news, you know, as a fun story. So it is fairly recent. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is, if you can put your answers in the chat box, and then Naomi will look and see who's the winner. And meanwhile, we can open it up to some more general questions from the audience. So either put your question in the chat box, or do feel free to unmute yourself and unmic you and open your cameras, and if you're brave enough, ask it directly. So let's see.
Fire away.
Have we got any questions coming in the chat box? Not yet. I think they're all fighting to get their answers in for the quiz. Well, maybe while they're doing that, we'll keep an eye on it, and I'll just say to you, what would your top tips be for would-be writers, would-be illustrators? Because there may be people in the audience who are fledgling illustrators or fledgling authors.
Very true. Yes, indeed. The best advice that I was given before I was published was to write what you want to write, which I think is very important. That you're sort of you don't think, oh, I must do a book about this. And even now, actually, if someone says, "Can you do a book about this?" I can be a bit reluctant because unless it's Chitty, of course, in which case it's inspiring in a different way. But it's very important to write from things that are close to your heart.
Yes.
What
And
about illustrating? Yeah.
I agree, and also to read a lot, and I'm kind of echoing what you just said, Peter, which is write what you want. The way that I'm thinking about it is create what doesn't exist. So create something that you would like to see on the shelves, and that's kind of what that's kind of what I try to do. If there's something that I want to read about and it's not, it doesn't exist, then I'll do it. And also to be really perceptive of what's going on, because I think that as artists and as creatives, as writers, we're almost like reporters, sort of reporting what's happening in the world, and kind of feel like we have this amazing platform and we should use it. And we can, I don't know, just create perhaps what the world needs, even if they don't know they need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Yes, that's nicely put, actually. Yes, create. I think C.S. Lewis said something similar, didn't he, about why he wrote Narnia, was because it was a sort of book he would have liked to read as a child, but didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. We have a question from Farrelith. Did you know the book from your own childhood past, or like many, many children today, was it the film? Did anything surprise you when you were reading or rereading the text?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good one. I think I probably saw the film before I read the book, because I was fairly young when the film came out. It must have been about 7 or 8. And yeah, I think it was a while after that I read the book, and I was surprised by how different bits of it were from the film. The whole thing in what's the country called, in Bulgaria, and with the prince and the princess, the count and the countess. They're none of that's in that. That's completely an invention of the screenplay writers. But yeah, I enjoyed both, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I saw the film first, and read the book afterwards. And like you, it was interesting to see that there wasn't a child catcher in the original story. I actually have one of the original books on me here. I'll show you. So the original. Actually, I was going to just give away one of the answers then, but I better not say that. Anyway, so this is one of the installments of the original publication of Chitty, which I bought interestingly enough, I bought it about 2 weeks before my lovely agent Elizabeth Roy emailed me and asked me if I'd be interested in illustrating Chitty, a new adaptation. I actually stumbled upon this in the shop, in an antique book shop in London, and then had it on my desk because I love Chitty. I always have done. And then shortly afterwards, I had the job. The job came through.
That's what I call spooky.
That's spooky. Yeah.
Meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another question. What have you seen as the benefit? This is from Tanya. What have you seen as the benefits of Zoom, etc., as the new way of us meeting up? She says, I like not getting lost on journeys to events, but really miss meeting up.
Well, I think that's a good answer, actually. I think it's wonderful that it makes things possible, but it's no substitute for meeting real people. To be quite honest, I mean, I love meeting everyone tonight, but it'd be so much nicer to have a breakout afterwards and hang around and natter, and as we do at events or when I'm in schools meeting teachers, children, parents. So it's a very useful tool, and I'm glad we've got it. But let's go back to the old way soon, please.
I have to say, as a spectator, I love Zoom. As an author, I also like Zoom, but I don't love it as much as I do as a spectator, because as an alternate illustrator, I like the buzz of meeting people and that interaction. But like I said, as a spectator, Zoom is great because you haven't, you can go to so many more events. There's no train tickets to pay for, no getting lost. Like Tanya said, because I get lost a lot, so for me it's brilliant. But yeah, I do miss interacting with people for sure. Being able to step to one side and say, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" Whereas on Zoom you can't really do that. It's a bit awkward. Sometimes you see people popping up and you want to say, "Oh, how you doing? Good to see you," but everybody can hear.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that, isn't it? That it's not quite a private conversation. Yes. So Tanya says you can't see she's in her pajamas or a gym jams. So that's the other thing. People get used to, perhaps looking smart at the top and having, jama bottoms on. So we have to remember that when we go back out into the real world.
Steve and I are actually both wearing kilts as we speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think in terms of the quiz, we'll stop the quiz now. So if you haven't submitted your entries, tough, because that gives Naomi a chance to make sure that she does the sort of marking. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Shall I read out the answers, or is that? Should we do that at the end?
Hear someone's voice. Yes.
Did someone say yes? They had a question.
I do. I have a question for Steve.
Okay.
Steve, you're always wonderful at the detail. I'm wondering why you've hidden the charging points for Chitty.
Oh, well, actually, it's in the detail.
I know.
On the end paper, as you can see. It kind of shows you how it works, like how everything works. Yeah. If you really pay attention to the end papers, because it's a very good question, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to be sure that this could actually be a real car. If anyone wanted to create a real version of it, which has happened with the Chitty from the musical, then they can, because it's all there. So yeah, it is there. It's got like a little lightning bolt on the where is it? Let's go back to the just there.
Oh yes, and I just wanted a chance for you to show people your lovely end papers.
Oh yes, thank you. Oh, actually, look at so on the end papers. If you're a real fan of, I won't go into it, but if you're familiar with all of the Chitties and all the iterations of Chitty, you might appreciate some of the details in the end papers here. So take a good look if you get the book.
It is amazing. It is amazing. The detail. I mean, that is such a joy. I can imagine so many little eyes looking at that and just taking it all in, and working it all out, and then asking their parents if they can build one in the back garden.
Yeah. and actually nice to see you, Elizabeth. I can say that Elizabeth is one of the great agents in this business, so it's lovely to have you here as well. Thank you for coming.
Yes, indeed.
So Peter, do you guys want to give the answers? And we have a winner, so once you've given out the answers, I can announce the winner.
Okay. Right, the answer to question 1, what year was Chitty first published? The answer is 1964. In fact, Chitty was published first in 2 parts, and the first 2 parts were published in 1964, and then they were brought together as a single book in 1965. I think that's right, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, and this actually is the second part that I was showing you.
Second part, yeah.
That's the second part there.
I think the second part, the first part, kind of ends where I split the story, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I think it does. Yeah. Yes.
Ends at Steve.
First part. So I mean, it's incredible to me to think that you took essentially the story, which comprised of 3 books. You took that and turned it into a picture book. That's amazing, really. You've taken all that text and pared it right down into a 32-page picture book. It's incredible.
But that, I mean, it all comes from my previous years of editorial editing and journalistic training. Just boiling things down, really. It's it's quite fun. I enjoy the challenge. Anyway, do you want to do number 2?
Yeah.
Number 2. So, how many children's books did created Ian Fleming write? One, which is this one, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Although it was, as we were just saying, it was published in 3 installments, but it was still the one story. So one. So one is the answer.
Okay. Question 3. Chitty was named after a real racing car. What was its name? Its name was Chitty Bang Bang. Chitty Bang Bang. And it was owned by a racing car driver called Count Louis Zborowski. And he actually owned, I think there were 3 original Chitties, and he crashed all of them between 1920 and 1924. So that sort of great age of men with moustaches and flying goggles in their cars. So Chitty Bang Bang was the answer.
So 100 years old, really. You know, at 1920, here we are, 2020.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You know what? That's the first time that's occurred to me.
Yeah.
You're quite right. The
Yeah.
Chitty centenary. Well, we'll have to go and celebrate.
Yeah.
So the next one, so number 4, who was the first illustrator of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? John Birmingham, Quentin Blake, or Helen Oxenbury? The answer is John Birmingham.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Beautiful. Okay, and the book that inspired Ian Fleming, which he thought was terrible bilge, was Squirrel Nutkin, which is surprising. I mean, if I hadn't known that, I might have gone for 101 Dalmatians because it was a longer story. But no, Squirrel Nutkin, a very different kind of book.
Yeah. And the last question, which multi-Oscar winning director bought one of the Chitty cars and drove the cast members around the set? The answer is Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings director. And I think I did see some guests here come up with that as the answer. So I'm really impressed. So Peter Jackson.
Okay, and fanfare, because our winner, who got 6 out of 6, is Laura John. So congratulations, Laura, and well done. And we will sort out getting a signed book, and you can let me know who you'd like it dedicated to. So we kind of
well done, Laura. Yes.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of our evening, but before I bring it to a close and say a few thanks, just a reminder that if you would like to order a signed and dedicated copy of the book, Naomi has put the link to the order line in the chat box, so you just need to scroll up and then copy and paste it, and we do need your orders, as I say, by 3 o'clock tomorrow, so that we can make sure you get your book in time. Just a little kind of plug for some future virtual events that we will be doing. We're going to be doing a book launch with poet Alex Wharton and illustrator Katie Riddell for their new poetry collection, Daydreams and Jelly Beans, on Thursday, the 21st of January. We are in the process of organising some virtual tours and school events for publishers, and offering schools and libraries the opportunity to take part in these. So if you're interested, just send me an email. We're going to be working with Lisa Williamson, Karen McManus, Sam Copeland, Radzi Chinyanganya, Alex Wharton, Katie Riddell, Miriam Halami, Hannah Took, Tamsin Merchant, and Robert Muchmore. We've also got some exciting things in the pipeline for World Book Day week. We're going to be running our Authors Aloud UK Awesome Author Fest, where we will have an event that schools need to book. It's a paid for events. We've got Sally Gardner lined up, and we have some other exciting people that we're just waiting for confirmation on. So keep an eye out for the information coming out on that. If you don't want us to keep your details on file so that we can let you know about future events, then please email me and I will take you off the list. Our next virtual author party will be on the 18th of January at 7 o'clock, when our next 25 batch of authors, illustrators, poets and storytellers will be doing their 1-minute speed dating with the audience to show you what they can do in a virtual school visit. So that's a little plug for us. So I now need to say a few thanks. First of all, to Hachette Children's Group for asking us to host this launch tonight. So thanks, Becky Mansell, thanks, Elaine Connolly, and also thanks to Becky Logan, who I didn't realise was here at the beginning. And thank you, as always, to all you wonderful people for coming along and supporting us and taking part in our events, and for booking authors through us. We really do appreciate it. But finally, the hugest of thanks go to you, Peter, and you, Steve, for such a fantastic evening. So can I ask everybody to switch your mics and your cameras back on if you feel brave enough, and raise your glasses or your mugs of tea and coffee, whatever your fancies, and join me in saying congratulations, Peter and Steve, on a magnificent book, which I think will do brilliantly for you, and congratulations to Hachette as well for publishing such a fab book. I think it's going to be in the Christmas stockings of many, many children. So cheers, people.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hooray for Steve and Peter.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
everyone.
Christmas.
Have a good evening.
Hope to see you again at our next event. So bye. We'll just
Bye.
yeah, bye.